Well, hello, upper cervical doctors and students. Welcome to another episode of the UCM Podcast. Very excited to be with you again today. We have an awesome guest. Been chasing this guy around for a while. Finally got him on the podcast, and that is Dr. Tron Malachowski. Dr. Tron, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Bill, for having me, man. It's awesome to finally get in touch with you. It's been hard to track you down, but I'm happy that we could make this happen.
Absolutely. So, for anybody out there who doesn't know you, Dr. Tron, tell our audience about yourself.
Wow, man, that's a very open-ended question. I am the dad of two awesome girls. They're 13 and 11 right now. Both of them love playing volleyball and sports. I'm the husband to an amazing wife named Erica. That is my rock and foundation. Wouldn't be where I am without her. I am the son of the living God. I'm an upper cervical knee chest chiropractor in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm a podcaster, entrepreneur, investor, researcher, all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of like, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So basically you're just sitting around all day doing nothing. Is that basically what you're telling me?
Yeah. But when patients come in, they're like, what are you up to? I'm like, just kind of twiddling my thumbs in the back, just doing nothing. So
yeah. So busy with a lot of fun, good stuff. So let's take it back a bit. I want to hear about your journey, and you've been in upper cervical practice now for, and I think you said 17 years, right? So
yeah,
let's take it back to, where it started. How did you get into this kind of work? What was the initiating factor that brought you down this road?
Yeah, it's a really powerful story. It's something that I've learned to share over the years that I did in the beginning. I was in gym class when I was about 11 or 12 and suffered from a traumatic spondylo, literally in midair. I went to touch a basketball net in midair, and, that happened. And I fell to the floor in a massive amount of pain. I could barely walk. I don't even remember how I finished school that day. My mom was never big on the medical profession and trying to get going to the medical route to get people help that they needed, but she really didn't know what to do with me. My aunt was working for a chiropractor at the time, so my single mother drove me 45 minutes one way to a chiropractor. He told me he had no idea whether he could help me or not. He taught me about a subluxation and what it was, and how what was going on with me could be potentially affecting my nervous system. And slowly but surely, 3 to 4 days a week, almost every day, my mother was driving me 45 minutes one day to a chiropractor. And it took an entire year with medication, being taken off the football field, depression, being able to get around school, being made fun of because my back was hurting. It took me 1 year to get back on the football field.
Wow.
It was one of the most difficult times of my life for a really long time. And about the 6 to 8 month mark, when I was getting well and starting to take the back brace off, I realized that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. My chiropractor knew something really special about the body, and I'm like, I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. So my chiropractor went to Palmer, so I never even looked at another school. I didn't even know other schools even existed. So for, all the Cleveland guys and Life guys and Shermies that are out there, you guys are amazing, but I went to Palmer.
Right.
I went to, Palmer Proud. I grew up with ultrasound and resistor and stretching and muscle stim and kind of all that rehab kind of stuff that I had that changed my life. So that's what I wanted to do once I got to school. And because I didn't know anything else. I pledged Delta Sigma Chi when I was in fourth try at Palmer. And that's when I was introduced to toggle recoil. And that's really the first time that I was introduced to BJ Palmer and what he was about, what he did in the research center. And in the fraternity, they're obviously all about BJ Palmer and straight chiropractic. So I'm like, there's something to this. I got heavily involved with toggle recoil very quickly. I beat out a lot of my friends in the toggle off, but didn't make the first place guy, unfortunately. I don't remember who that was. I'm sure some of my classmates do. And then over time, I learned from toggle, kind of made another step to Blair. And then once I was learning Blair work, I started to learn a little bit about knee chest and what they did during the research center and the work that they did there. And that's when I came across the name Kale. And I continued to learn more about it. And then Dr. Drury out of Charlotte, North Carolina, had his first upper cervical evolution in 2007.
Yep.
And probably the most amazing conference I've ever been to this date. I mean, there were probably 450 upper cervical chiropractors from all over the world. And Kale was there. The son was there. And I had heard about the family 100 times and walked out the conference one day, kind of turned around the corner, and there his son was sitting kind of half lounged on a love seat, just kind of relaxing. And I'm like, wow, you're Dr. Kale? And he's like, yep. And we just hit it off from there. And that was in 2007. And to make a really long story short, I ended up associating right down the street from here, from him in his office for 4 years. And we struggled for 4 years. It was Kale practiced the way that his dad did 20 or 30 years ago. So that business thought process was very different now compared to the way that it was then. So the business aspect of the office wasn't that great, but I mean, I saw cases with gastroparesis went away and prolapsed bladders and Parkinson's disease stopped shaking. And, we had patients that come from Costa Rica and their seizures started going away. Like the type of cases that we were seeing were absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. We had an 8-year-old that she could have 15 feet of her intestine resected. She had a stomach that was blown up that when she burped, it smelled like sewage. She had a C2 entire segment right. We adjusted her. The next day she came back. Her stomach was completely gone. They canceled the surgery, $50,000 surgery. Her life was completely transformed.
Awesome.
But reading through your story, it's kind of like your lowest low end up turning into one of your highest highs. I prayed for many years that God would work on showing me what he wanted me to do. And that was, continue to go on the path with Kale. And I wasn't making the progress that I should have. I felt like I shouldn't, but I was following my God and the word, or he would release me. And he released me. And, now we're 12 years later and grateful for that time that I spent there because the technical aspect was some of the best ever in the world. But the business aspect, I feel like there was a lot more that I had to offer.
Yeah. Yeah. So went out on your own and opened your own practice and, talk about those early years of practice. What was that like when you were first on your own?
So I joined a consulting group, and the goal for me when I joined them was to really have 40 to 60 consultations ready to go right from the bat. And that's what I started with in my office. And that's what we had. I think we ended up with 42 paid for consultations starting up. And I opened up a 1,200 square foot office that was about 2 miles from my current office. It had a reception room, office area, consultation room, 2 adjusting rooms, a small resting room, an x-ray room. And like my office was like all the way in the back that you had to go through 2 rooms to get to. So it was super, super disjointed. We grew out of that space in just a few years. And we ended up moving into the office that I'm in now. We're in 2,400, 2,500 square feet. And we've grown out of this office now. The parking lot's too small. And now we're on to the next one. But those first few years, I mean, opening up a business, you start to shake. Like there's so much stuff that's going on. Like you want to throw up and be excited at the same time. Like it's a lot going off on your own. But I had dreams and I wasn't letting anything get in my way. And I had focus and I had mentors around me that were like, dude, you can do this. I'm like, I know that I can do it. I just need to walk down the road, and I'm still walking down that road.
Yeah. Yeah. So after you got it, kind of got the practice going, when was it when you brought in the first associate doctor?
So I had a super, super strong base. We were seeing about 200 to 250 patient visits a week, about 3.5, 4 days. And I was just at a point where I was really leveling off, and I didn't have the physical capacity to see more people personally and also here in the office as well. And I'm like, it's time. So we brought on Dr. Julia Hartman, who has an office down in where she's in James Island. We actually opened up her office just a few years ago, and I trained her through the Knee Chest Society along with the other doctors there. She came on as my associate. I mentored her for 2.5 years, and then was a really, really integral part of getting her started and setting up her office for the success that she's got going on now. And she's doing amazing. Her brother has an office in Charlotte, and her sister and brother-in-law have a booming office in Texas, and they're doing really well. So cool. When I brought on an associate, I opened up my office in 2012 solo. I brought on an associate in 2020 of all the years to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, hey, just throw it at me. What do you got?
Yeah.
Like, why not? Why not bring on an associate during the most insane years that this world has ever seen?
Right. But made it through, and now thriving with the associate doctor in the practice, right? And so you were telling me, kind of some future plans even with him. What you see, what you guys are seeing together on what would be a next step for him, right?
I told all the docs that either preceptor with me or end up becoming an associate, or they want to come onto the office. Like, I always tell them, like, it has to be a win-win situation for us. Like, it's not me winning and you losing. We're not getting in this together so that, you can win and take advantage of me. It's that so that when people come into my office, they know that they want to be mentored, that the goal is to not just make them better upper cervical chiropractors, but to really work on helping them become better people. And that isn't a coach to me. That is a mentor walking side by side with them to say, no, like, you got your hand in the right place, but instead of doing this, I want you to work on trying it this way. Or listen, like, you did that great and you said that great, but I want you to work on lowering your voice a little bit now. Like, my associate, we literally just had lunch just now at a steak restaurant, and we were talking about him eventually bringing in an office manager. And I said, well, if they don't carry out the task that you gave them, tell me what your response is going to be to them. Act like I'm them. And we just role played together. And he told me what he would say. And I said, that's great. It's great that you brought up the fact that she didn't do what you needed to say. But what I need you to do is I need you to tell them what she actually did right. And then I need you to tell them, well, if you could do it again, what do you think you could have done maybe a little bit better? So we're working on just taking people and just molding them to just really work on being the best version of themselves. And I found that when you work on understanding and aligning your dreams with their dreams and then being mentored over a period of time, it changes everyone's life. I mean, it's a win-win combination. And I feel like that's been done wrong for so long in the chiropractic world and the upper cervical world, really in the world of itself. And I just want to turn that on its head. Like, we're all here to help people. Let's help each other help more people. So that's where I come from.
No, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's what it's about, right? It's about bringing hope and healing to sick and suffering people. I think everybody has that same heart and mind that's involved with upper cervical chiropractic, and so why not try to help everyone get better, because it will help more people, around the world. So
and the goal is to help as many people as we possibly can, but like, Like, I want the people that I mentor and the people that end up becoming amazing upper cervical chiropractors to not just stand on my shoulders, but like, if they want to invest in a commercial deal later down the road, or if they want to, go in halves on a beach house or something like that, like, I want them to come to me and say, hey, do you want to be a part of this? I want all of us to just lift each other up and make this profession and world better than what we walked in at it. Like, scrambling over $5,000 or $10,000 over a deal, or going sour, like, that's stupid. Like, dude, let's help each other. So
Yeah.
that's my thought process.
Yeah. And so I wanted to shift gears a bit, and, something that we had talked about before we started, and that's the power of focus. And you mentioned that, this, as you've been working with doctors over the years, and this is something that you tend to come back to regularly and discuss with doctors. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about, what are some of the things that you see as far as maybe some patterns of struggle where people are, where are they getting distracted? What's the problems with their focus, or how do they need to refocus? Just talk through that whole topic.
That's so good. I'm happy you actually brought this up, because it's something I love to talk about. Is that, we're in the world of social media right now. Like, I mean, people that are listening to this right now are probably listening on social media in some aspect of it. And social media, in a lot of cases, has fractured people's attention in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And, even if we don't even talk about social media for a second, like, I've found that doctors that I've been working with, their attention span is just all over the place.
Mm.
And I am really big on dreams and goals and setting mile markers over months and years and ultimately decades for people. I talked about it in one of the podcasts I put together. And the reason why is that we need to be working towards something. There needs to be a destination towards where we're headed and where we're going. And I found that, well, we can start to work on putting that together for them, designed off of what they need. Then we can work on zeroing in on a process to work on achieving those goals. A month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. And if people can begin to zero in on what they want, they can work on reverse engineering to come up with a plan designed to get them to where they want to go. So I'm actually working with a mindset and performance coach right now. And one of the things that we're simply working on is just breathing. And what I mean by that is that when you just sit back, breathe through your nose for a certain count and work on breathing out, what it does, it brings down it helps calm down the central nervous system, gets you to go inward, which allows you to be able to focus on one thing, which is yourself at the moment. When you can work on doing that, it allows you to be able to focus on exactly what you want and need. And so many people just need to work on freaking start breathing, start working on their dreams and goals, and then work on developing a plan to work on achieving their dreams and the goals. And that's simply just reverse engineering. It's not a hard process. I've just found over the years that in working with docs and even with some students, a lot of them never do it. A lot of them never do it because they're uncomfortable. They've never had someone teach them do that. They've never heard of it before. I mean, listen, like, my mom made $4,000 a year as a part-time bus driver. Like, I grew up in a single trailer home in the farms of rural Pennsylvania. Like, I have not come from a wealthy, well-off background. My family was full of love. And for me, I was fortunate to have a solid foundation that I could just work on jumping off from. And these business concepts and things that I talk about with docs and students today, they come from a thirst and a hunger from loving the business aspect of what we do and loving and working towards getting better.
Yeah. So, when you're talking about focus with a doctor, and as you said, there's a lot of times there's a divided focus. And this is something we see a lot with doctors too, especially with doctors who are either new in practice or in what we call practice growth stage 2, where practice growth stage 1, where they're collecting less than $20,000 per month, and they're in more of a survival mode, right?
Yeah.
So, you talked about just getting someone to do something as simple as just breathing and start to really kind of focus your mind and your what you're trying to do. And so when you see someone who you're working with who starts to do that, are they able to then begin to build a plan? Are they able to then take that focus? If they can focus it properly, they can start to put the steps together themselves? Or is that something that you have found that you need to be able to guide them to do?
Survival mode is so hard to break out of because people are literally paralyzed to take any step in any direction. In the survival mode, people in the survival mode have to make a specific, deliberate choice to live different than how they're living in the present term. They have to make it. Like when Kale and I broke, I had to make a choice to say, I'm going to live with the troubles that we had previously, or I'm going to work on building something that I have always wanted and bigger than I could ever possibly imagine. And at that point, I didn't even have a job. I walked away, he walked away, and I deliberately chose, I remember to this day and the day that I did it, I deliberately chose, I am going to take the best from what I learned from Dr. Kale. And I'm also going to take the worst of what I learned from them, and I'm going to build on it and make the very best life and make these dreams come true. It's got to start with a choice. Once you can make the deliberate choice, it almost kind of knocks out those cobwebs and those connections and the junk of woe is me. Why didn't it turn out this way? I can't believe I'm doing this. I should be better. I should be further along. And it resets your brain to think, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And once people can work on, I can get them to a point of what do I do now? That's when we can start to get them to think. And I start when I get them to start to think, I first start to get them to think about what they want in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think people make the mistake of creating a life that someone else has, and coaches make the mistake of boxing people into what they think they want. Personally, I start with people what are your dreams? What do you want to create? Do you still want to be an upper cervical chiropractor in 30 years? Do you want to drive a Lamborghini? Do you want to see 50 patient visits a week and travel 6 months out of the year? What is it that you want? And once you figure that out, now we've got a goal to work on getting to. Now we have a set point. Now we can work on driving you where to get there. Yeah. If they don't put their foot in the sand, I feel like it's almost impossible to break people out of survival mode. People have to get down to the rock bottom, where you were at, when you were injured, when that happened with you. I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that you went through in your heart and your mind, but then you realize man, I'm not going to live this way. I'm going to live a different way, and I'm going to be the best way I can be. I was the same thing. I'm you know what? This didn't turn out the way that I had it in my mind, but God's got something better, and I'm going to go after it. And what I know about what this guy created and the rock solid upper cervical foundation that we've got, we can change the world. You're crazy if you don't want to change the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Upper cervical is incredible, and it changes lives every single day. And sometimes doctors they start losing that passion or that focus of what it's all about. And
yes,
it's really about impacting the lives of people in your community.
Yes.
And if you lose that, if you lose because you can get caught up in the income, for instance, and lose your focus. And it's when you focus on the impact, the income comes. but when you focus on the income, you're chasing the money. It's a whole lot harder to get there from what I've seen. And so, I mean, with me and my story, like you said, I mean, when you break your neck and you're paralyzed and you're laying there in a hospital for 3 months and you come out and you have no practice anymore that was thriving and rocking and rolling when you went out that day to go mountain biking, it's it messes with you in every possible way, right? Your mind is dramatically impacted. But for me, it was God. God was with me through that whole time until he brought me to give me a new vision and new mission surrounded around UCM, and showed me that I can still make an impact, right? And so for doctors who are in that stage, that survival stage, like you said, they have to have a mindset shift. That it starts with that. I mean, it's such a, it's almost cliche at this point within chiropractic. It's like, oh, your mindset. It's your mindset. Your mindset's wrong. Your headspace, whatever, right? But it's like, it actually is, right?
Everything.
It doesn't matter if it's cliche because it's true. It's true. You have to think differently. You can't keep thinking the way that you've been thinking and expect to get different results. It's your thinking that is contributing to your action or lack of action that's leading to your results.
Yes. Yeah. A few years ago, I gave a presentation on, a lot of people create presentations on $1 million practice. And I'm like, no, let's create $1 million mind. So in my thought process is that, like, focus on your wins, focus on what you do have, focus on what you're grateful for, focus on where you're going, focusing on the impact that you want to work on creating. When you focus on the right stuff in life and you focus on your God or whoever that is, like, your life turns and it doesn't become about you. It becomes about them. It becomes about the impact that you're making in their lives. And the more that you can work on giving and giving and giving and giving, eventually it's going to work on back to you. Like, give, love, and serve. There's a reason why that's been around for since 1964, I think was the date. Like, there's a reason why those guys have been around for so long, is because you have to give of yourself. You have to give yourself to be able to rise up and create what you're wanting to create in your community. And when you take your eyes off of yourself, you feel love. And I found that when you put your eyes back on yourself, you feel fear. So it's a lot easier to think about others that way than it is about yourself.
Well, it's 100% right, because if you look at what the Bible teaches, for instance, right? Jesus said, I came not to be served, but to serve, right? And that should be our focus as people. That's how he has made us. He has made us to be a servant of others. And so when we're constantly focused on ourselves, what it leads to is anxiety. It leads to depression. It leads to these things because we're constantly thinking about, like you said, woe is me, all these kinds of thinking. But when you start getting your focus and attention on others, and you really are constantly thinking about, how can I serve others? How can I bless others? How can I do better for these people that God has entrusted to me? Then it starts to shift. It starts to change. But if you go back to that, thinking about yourself constantly, you're going to stay right where you are, is what I've seen over and over.
And so it's a tough place to be. I've been there. I've been. There were times in the relationship with Kale, like it was the worst time of my life. And I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to wonder if, like, the office is even going to survive. But I've found that I needed to just work on giving more of myself and not thinking about myself, but thinking about other people. And I came to a point and realized that as much as I was struggling and have a difficult time, like, I still had air in my lungs. I still had clothes on my back. Like, we were still in a home that still had air conditioning, and my wife was still there, and the dog was still there. Like, I still had my feet on the ground. And like, when you realize that, like, that stuff is still there around you, like, all you have is up. Like I even have a guy that I mentored and taught knee chest to, like, upon opening up his office, like there's some really tough things that happen with him personally, like the worst he could imagine. And he's now having to opening up an office while all this is going on. And he's like, you know what? There's absolutely nothing I can do about it, but my focus is going to be taking care of people.
Yeah.
My focus is going to be that although I can't do anything about this particular circumstance, I can think about change and focus on what's going on here so I can take care of the people that I'm meant to. And it's a testimony to his growth and the strength and the mindset and what to focus on. So,
yeah, that's awesome. So this has been a great conversation, Doc. I really appreciate it. And I just, want to give you one more opportunity. Just, is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap up for today?
The upper cervical community is one of the most amazing communities I've ever been a part of, but it's fractured in so many different ways and thought processes and persons hating on this person and not liking this technique and all that kind of stuff. And I want to encourage people to understand that we're all coming from a place of wanting to help people, and a place of helping people get well and being open to just learn about what other people are doing and how they're doing it. But work on being the best at what you do. Work on being the best at, like, I was dead set, and I'm still to this day, dead set at being the best knee, chest, upper cervical doctor in the country, in the world, because I have this over consuming sense within me to just work on getting better and stronger and refining, because I feel like I have a responsibility, not just to my family, but I have a responsibility to the people in my community. And I have a responsibility to my profession to work on giving back so much of what's been given to me. So I just want people to just work on becoming better and being okay with where they're at and work on moving forward from there. And if they need help, to reach out to whoever they need help with, and being okay with, like, this is where you're at. Let's work on getting you where you want to go, and just doing it, just getting it done. Like, you have to start. And if you don't start, you're never going to get there.
That's right. Awesome, Doc. Appreciate you so much. Appreciate you doing this today with us. And as we always say, go team upper cervical.